Welcome to the MOPs Exchange. This session, we are speaking with Mary and Sangeetha from Informa. Looking forward to this one. Having had Mary and Sangeetha on our podcast previously, it's an honor to have them on here as well. They're incredibly talented, very good at what they do, and incredibly knowledgeable. So, yeah, really excited to talk to you guys around the topic today.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for asking.
Mary, Sangeetha, you have both got huge amounts of experience in the area we're about to deep dive into, which is mergers and acquisitions, and how they affect marketing, particularly marketing operations and technology. Do you want to give us a little bit of an insight into why you are experienced, have the knowledge to give us some pointers on this? What is your experience in this area?
We've been on both sides of the aisle as far as like mergers and acquisitions are concerned. We've been acquired and with businesses that have been acquired. And conversely, we've been with a business that did the acquiring or the merging, however you want to look at it. We've also been there where a business that was part of where we were has been sold off. So I think we've seen kind of all sides of it, and how it affects the business. Sangeetha, what are your thoughts?
I think the people impact, right? It's huge. While you go through it, when you go through it one time, Rebecca, you start to sympathize and empathize with the people on the other side, right? What I've seen is some people kind of go in hiding. They're scared about what to happen, and some people become extremely visible because they want to kind of lay the land, right? Grab at things while they can. So I think that being on the other side where you are acquiring, you need to make sure you're maintaining a neutral tone, right, and giving the opportunity to the both parties that I mentioned. If you are being acquired, then again, you need to maintain the neutral tone and be fair in this process, right? And I think, people also find it very hard to embrace change. But in case of a merger and acquisition, the change is already happening, right? You just have to go with the flow and do your best and get the best out of it.
So how did you find it? I mean, how long ago was the first merger or acquisition that you went through?
My first one was literally my first job when I moved here, right, moved to the US. So I was part of a startup company, which was a spin-off by a parent, a huge media company at that point. And from then on, I think there have been 4 rollovers to where I am here. So you could technically say I'm part of the same company, right? At that point, I was very new. I was a junior architect, developers. I didn't really grasp the enormity of it. But even when that happened, what hit me is you take care of the people, right? That was my first experience. People who have been giving their 100%, you make sure to find a spot for them. You make sure to make them feel reassured.
And did you learn that through a positive experience with that first time, or?
It was positive and negative at the same time, right? Otherwise, I would not have been here. I would say it was negative and then positive because that's why I am here today.
Right. Okay.
I think you can learn positive and the negative, Rebecca, right? Yeah. So you learn what not to do, right? And so, I mean, I think my first one was like 2013 that I went through, where they merged 3 different businesses together. Sangeetha and I, believe it or not, were in that same merger, but we didn't know each other, right? But with that, I think my learning was that it will get better. So no matter how bad that particular merger was, it got better. It normalized and stabilized, and it got better. So it felt really bad in the moment, but 2-3 years down the road, everything, all the jaggedy pieces were smoothed out. Opportunity had been created from the business perspective. Opportunity had been created from career growth perspectives. And the bad stuff was gone. So I would throw that out.
Interesting. So not always is it, I suppose, really clear what the vision is. I suppose even the people who are managing the transformation and that merger activity can't see in the future. They can't see what's going to happen with the market, with the industry, to be able to really understand how they can map it out, which I'm sure causes a few bumps in that road. How well do you see, or how have you seen it being done well to encourage everybody to, like you just said, stick with it until it smooths out? Is that something that you've seen, I suppose, your leadership focus on, or has it been a little bit more, you only need to know if you need to know?
I can answer this first, and then Mary, please chime along, right? I think it's both clear goals, communication, and milestones, right? Those are the three things. Even if it is a negative news, I would like to know as much as earlier as possible so I can be prepared, right? So it's finding the right balance, Rebecca, not to create panic, right? Give a clear goal of how you're going to merge the business. The systems and the processes will come along with it. But first is the merger of the business, right? Start right by merging the operational systems. Like Teams is where we normally start, the HR systems. You create that feeling of unification by bringing everybody into the same ecosystem, whether it's even an email domain matters, right? You start there, right? Then you start to merge the HR systems. Then comes the operational systems, like MarTech and everything comes after that once you have your business strategy, right? So that's the way I've seen it work very, very well when the leaders were communicating at the right level, at the right intervals, and keeping the people intact until everything is done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I would add on to it. I think making it successful, Rebecca, is reducing the friction as part of that, right? So Sangeetha's communications, right, is reducing that friction. It's being open, transparent, honest, right? And I also think one of the really good ones I saw maybe 18 months ago was they created a buddy system. So a person from the new company and a person from the existing company were buddies, right? They were aligned together. So it's that transparency, but there's someone you can talk to that knows the ropes, someone you can talk to that has a different experience perhaps, and you can learn from them. So there's a give and take in that. And I think if I'm going to call one thing out, it's that transparency and that collaboration of bringing people together in a way that they can, because they're going to work together.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's a nice idea. I haven't heard that being done before, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I suppose relieve some of that anxiety across both sides as well, sides of the newly formed business. So Sangeetha, you sort of mentioned where in the order of tasks, I suppose, and priorities, the marketing suite, technology suite comes into this. What have you seen in terms of the biggest impacts, or what works well from a planning perspective on how to merge that technology and those underlying processes? Because sometimes you'll have, we see it often, that one organization will have really advanced capabilities and are quite sophisticated in the way they run their marketing. Others not so much. So, but that's not often taken into consideration when the end state architecture is actually designed. So we see very mixed ways of it working, and I'm sure across all the experience you've had, you've got similar experience. What do you think is really essential in sort of doing that right?
That's the million-dollar question, Rebecca, and you put it very, very eloquently, right? Sometimes that I've seen power plays between the acquiring and the acquired business, right? But there are two factors I would say here, right? There are terms and conditions around which these acquisitions happen. So I've seen terms where this business should not have a drop in a value, so they continue to operate in the same way. You know, there are TSAs, right? For the next 18 months, we don't really impact them, right? I think the good part is when you have something like that, that gives you a prolonged time to understand how that business operates. And then put it into action, right? The way I would put it into action and what I've seen best is go with the capabilities. Don't lead with the technology. See what capabilities are needed to run both businesses. What are the commonalities among those capabilities? What technologies are currently performing those capabilities? How are those technologies integrated and licensed, right? At both angles. If I have a license for the next 4 or 5 years, if I've already paid it, then if it has the capability to integrate, let's use that. So start with the capability view and perform the gap analysis, right? That should lead to your end architecture, target architecture. And in that, add in the mix, right? What is the TSA? When should it be fulfilled? Are there any terms, in terms of things we cannot do, right? If there is a third merger or something like that within, there are associations, contracts, right? Then we cannot touch those systems, that data, be aware of it, all right? Then plan the move so that you keep the least impact to the commercial value, because at the end of the day, the commercials are what people look at, right? If I lost X million because I did something in 3 months, I'm okay with spending another, $15,000 on a license I could have kept for a year, right? So make rational decisions. Don't be too focused on, okay, when is the integration complete, all right? Focus on when can the people and the capabilities transfer over to the technology and continue to deliver what they do.
Yeah, I think that's really key. Really key is not losing that capability. Yeah, I think it's such a shame when you see people going backwards in terms of their maturity because of decisions that have been made by somebody else. I would just add at this point, if anyone wants to ask any questions as we're talking, please either put it into the chat or sort of just speak up. We'll be very welcome to questions. Sorry, Mary.
I think, Rebecca, sometimes the reason for the backward technology slide is that you're moving somebody, you've got 90% of your business operating one way, and you've got the acquired business operating another way. Can you really afford to allow them to operate separately when the majority is operating another way? I'm throwing it out there as a question. I know that many of us have been there on this call and seen, okay, well, this is the standard. This is the acquired business. Now I need to figure out how to bring them in back to Sangeetha's point, so they don't lose capability and functionality, but at the same time, they become part of an existing stack. I mean, it's that, these big companies that are acquiring one after another. Can you have each of these different best practices run, or do you have to standardize at a level? And I'll leave it at that.
And to add to what Mary said, Rebecca, it's a change management. Start that very, very early on in the cycle. Who is getting impacted? And start the change of hearts first, right, before you change the technology. And let change management run through the entire life cycle, so the people feel supported, right? And they don't feel overloaded by everything that's coming at them.
Yeah, I think that's really key, is that bringing the team on board, getting them bought into the vision and the direction, and making it valuable and beneficial for them. Because if you don't have that team working together and feeling positive about what they're doing, things are going to fail at some point.
And now I'm going to call on Steve. He's been through a merger with us. Would love to know what your thoughts are. And he knew he was going to be called on because this happens.
Well, I mean, casting my mind back. Yeah, you're right. You need to be kind of system agnostic, and to kind of lead with the capabilities and the systems, like Sangeetha was saying. I think, you know, the details are important, but they can be kind of figured out later. That was one of the big things. They are important. You do need to have all the details, but you need to bring people with you as well. I think that was a huge thing. Like, if there's a team digging their heels in and refusing to move, just, you know, out of some principle or resistance, it just completely makes everything so much more difficult. If you haven't kind of won the political battle before you start trying to win the technical battle, I guess is how I'd say it. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, no, it is good insight. And have you, just thinking about this from the other side of the coin, has anyone on the call been part of a company that was separated from another company? Anyone being that split?
I am Kevin here from Sightline North Stellar. Yeah, I was actually part of Informa, and I started just as Sightline was being divested from Informa, and my role was to build the new Eloqua instance with the help of the Informa team, yeah, kind of do a bit of a lift and shift, but also try and do some enhancements along the way. But I think that's part of the challenge that I came across. Was we spent a huge amount of time implementing a system that was somebody else's system. So that was interesting, and that me getting up to speed with a system that we weren't going to be using, but a new one. So yeah, pretty interesting.
That is an interesting point there, Kevin. And how much autonomy were you given? I suppose because you were being a new organization, did you have the ability to go and find what tech you had, or was, like I think you said, you know, some of that wasn't your choice or not what you would have selected? How much of that was historic versus new?
So because there were so many systems having to be created, it was a lift and shift of almost everything. So we were trying to minimize the disruption by introducing new tools or new ways of working. And so once we had launched all of the systems at the same time, it was then a matter of trying to work out how we might want to adapt it, seeing as we were no longer part of Informa, which was much, much, much larger. See how we could maybe make it more suitable for something smaller and maybe more agile.
And you can feel free to ignore this question. What happened from a marketing technology perspective would you have done differently had you had the choice? Like a lot, or maybe pieces?
I don't think I would do anything necessarily differently. I think the pity was that I didn't have as much experience with how the system worked before, how the Informa system worked. The way that I just joined very much at the last minute. It was like I wasn't as involved with the system that we were trying to migrate. So it was tough. I was having to catch up very quickly. So that's in an ideal world, I would have liked to have had a little bit more time. Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, I think, Kevin, that was a really great point, right? When you are left to pick up the pieces and run with it, it's not easy. One option I found and worked in some cases is to retain any third-party vendors that you originally had, right? At least you get some of that expertise carried over, even if it comes with the cost. It guides us through a period.
Yeah, that's absolutely an excellent point. You know, we have been partnering with Sojourn ever since then. It was the Sojourn that did the initial migration, and subsequent companies that we've brought on. We've now got a multi-brand instance of Eloqua that has multiple companies on the same instance, and Sojourn are our partner, and I hope they will be for a long time yet.
There you go.
Very kind of you to say, Karen.
I think what Kevin has taught, so if I start to take it apart, right, and we're talking about MarTech here, Kevin built out a new platform, a new Eloquent instance. Is that right, Kevin? Do I remember that right?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was a new
That's what I thought.
Eloquent instance, but it was pretty much a copy of the one
mimic,
that was being
right.
divested. Yeah, exactly right.
But I think in some cases, so you had to do something in a small period of time because where that business was operating was being taken away. And I think that's one way an acquisition can work, right? I think another way is that everything moves with that acquisition. So Kevin had to move fast because what the platforms he was on were going back to the company that sold it off, right? But there's other places where it's like, we'll just take everything and run. We go, figure it out from there. And so I think there's two sides to that. And I think that two different ways creates complexities, but it also creates opportunities. Kevin got to build a new world. It was a mimic, but it was a new world. In some cases, it's, well, here's the platform we were on before, and we want to stay here. And it creates that whole, we're dealing with another one right now where they're very, very married to their old platform and not the opportunity of something new.
I was going to ask that actually, how much resistance have you seen over the years of people wanting to keep what they're used to? And is there a fight often?
Then there is, and that's why I would lead with the capabilities, right? As Kevin also mentioned, then it's a fair game. Which one meets 90% of the criteria versus 99% of the criteria, and apply the cost factor in there, then it feels an inclusive process, right? That way people are, the resistance, people tend to, okay, now I see the point, right? As Mary mentioned, if 90% of the world is in one stack and then the 10%, somehow has to adhere to it. Sometimes it's willingly, sometimes it's unwillingly. But when you have a proper gap analysis and a rationale for the switch, combined with the change management and proper training programs, I think you're going to lessen that resistance, Rebecca, and always tie it back to the commercial value you're getting out of it, whether it's through savings or through revenue uplift.
You made a really good point there, Sangeetha, is about tying the capabilities or the available capabilities back to the requirements. It's not just a case about which platform can do more, it's about what do you actually need it to do for you. And that will really drive adoption, because you might have something that is all singing or dancing, but you don't need anything that's all singing or dancing. You only need sort of entry-level capabilities. So there is no need for that potentially. I think that's really key, is actually thinking about what are our use cases for this technology. It actually reminded me of, I'd forgotten all about this. One of my first jobs, I worked for a tech company who were acquired by SAP, and the tech stack we had was really nice. And of course, we moved to SAP and we had to use all of their systems for obvious reasons. And that was a huge shift. Not only it was a completely new technology across everything, but it didn't do what we wanted it to do and what we were used to it doing. So we had to really swallow that and try and work out ways of making it work. And that was really difficult, especially when you're used to tools like Eloqua and Salesforce that are easy to use. Once you know how to use them, they're easy to use and you can do a lot with them. So that was a challenging experience. I've forgotten all about that, maybe for a reason.
Now you start to realize how intertwined all these mergers and acquisition and changes are part of our life, right? I mean, if you sit and think back, pretty much every year you go through something, professionally, in a way.
Yeah, and we see loads of this happening. Obviously, working with you at Informa, we see it happening all the time. and lots of other clients as well going through things. You know, yeah, one of the clients that I work really closely with are on their second acquisition or second merger within a 3-year period and 3-4 year period, and it's hugely impactful, and yeah, unsettling for
Creates change fatigue, right? It does. There's a certain level of change fatigue. I want to though point out, I think as we're talking about all this functionality and all that, it's the impact to the customer that all this ends up should, like, we're, you know, we're technical people, we're operating in a technical world, we're looking at this as functionality versus functionality. But I think the combining of the brands, if you're combining brands, back to Sangeetha's point of, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes ago, of holding on to, you can't affect revenue and all that. The changing in the industry that is happening while these brands are combining, how close are they related? How much of an audience was in an overlap between one or two of these? I think to me, that piece is so fundamental. And I think sometimes that's done kind of up here and away from the people and the technologists who are actually putting this together. I think to bring that down in and work through that and layer that in is so important to success.
Yeah, totally, Mary. I think, you know, when you do the capability analysis for the technology, you also do a competency analysis for the talent that you have, right? Retain the right talent, because then you can easily map, well, not easily, but you can map these together and see, okay, you know, this person can lead this person can carry this, right? You can start to see the patterns evolving when you put both of these two together, rather than just seeing, oh, this person was doing this, so, you know, maybe this is the label I'm going to give there, right? Instead, see, okay, what's the history? What's the competency? Have a conversation. Then you map them to the right roles.
There's a good time to do a skills analysis, isn't it? Step back and actually evaluate what are the best fit for our combined team, and, you know, where do people want to go as well? Having that conversation with them. Let's slightly change this up and talk about data and how that is impacted through these types of upheavals. What do you think? How do you wrap your arms around that change and the requirements there?
So, you know, when you come to data, I think my first instinct would be to protect the data and protect the talent that's taking care of that data, right? Those are the two things you will quickly lose if you don't take immediate measures. Other than that, I think it's about understanding the parameters around the data we have newly acquired, right? Like I said, are there any joint ventures, international joint ventures, any localization laws? How was privacy impacting this data, depending on the language? Rebecca, you very much know that if the collection points, the language at collection, how does it impact the usage of the data? I would first look at all those parameters and then come to what is the recency of it, you know, what is the decay, right? Think through all that and then go into how we can bring this data in, right? It should never start as, okay, how do we integrate and how do we get the data, right? Because once you bring it in, you know, you're not going to get rid of it forever, right? Instead, think through the points of collection. Are they valid anymore? And that's the journey I would follow. That is understanding every criteria I can around the data, the quality of the data, and then you map it to the use cases. Just because there was some data there, it doesn't mean it's going to work in today's world, right? Think about going back and the use cases and say, okay, well, if I have this, I can do this, right? Then you map the journey for that data. And I'm going to bring in Mary here because I'm sure I missed a lot. There's ton you can do in and around data.
So I'm going to say, I think it starts, but to me, fundamentally, it starts with the brand, the audience overlap, where that is, right? It's understanding that piece, where the data is sourced from, what the alignment is from the products or whatever inside of these brands. And then once I have that overlap and I understand that, that will then lead me back almost over to where Sangeetha was, if that makes any sense. So I almost want to start at a different layer, because I think I was in a business, I don't know, 6 years ago. We acquired another business, right? I have 50,000 audience here. I have 50,000 audience here, right? I'm going to have how many in my audience when I'm done? I've acquired this business, 100,000. No. You had 75,000 because 25,000 were in an overlap. Now, how do you work with them to say, this is the new brand, all that other stuff? But to me, it's understanding that and working with that piece first.
Yeah, no. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, the way things are moving forwards, have you, or has anybody actually found that AI has changed how any of this data is processed and pulled together yet? Or are we still at a stage where it's not quite ready to get involved?
I would say it's on the periphery, right, Andrew? So in terms of data exploration, definitely AI can play a huge part there. But I think it is to augment the human intelligence, because there is too many variables there. The technical aspects of it's 100%, no doubt at all, right? AI can definitely derive that intelligence and metadata you need from what is already there. But then defining how that can be used, like Mary mentioned, is still more human. And I think we have found more success with the human factor in this, because it brings a different angle, right? We are able to understand the history of these brands, as she mentioned. We are able to understand the offerings better and then make suggestions based on it. So I would say it's right now 30-70, but I do see the potential, as everything evolves, I do see the potential for that 30% to come more closer to a 50%.
Andrew, the other thing I would say is I think a lot of the businesses that are being acquired have been acquired before, right? So there's this kind of roll-uppy thing that's going on. And I think that adds a complexity into things where you acquire business F, but business F had previously acquired business, I don't know, N, and N had one set of systems, whatever else. And when business F acquired that business, it didn't change anything. So you've got all this like disparity running around, and that's what I've seen a lot of, right? And so when you try to homogenize into the universal agreed to stack, right? You've got all this like isolation out here. Running AI against that, to me, it's not impossible, totally. But I think you need human eyes there as well to layer into that.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
So what are you finding in terms of technology that helps with the whole, I suppose, the whole end-to-end migration? Let's focus on the marketing migration here, so including data in that. What have you found useful through everything you're doing? I imagine that has changed quite dramatically over the years in terms of what things can do to help. What are you finding useful?
Okay, I guess I'm going first then. So what I have found useful in this is, like I mentioned, data exploration tools, right? And it really, in a way, it really depends on the stack itself, right, Rebecca? I mean, there's no one size fits all solution in this. because based on the maturity of the stack and the processes that are integrated around it, your approach is going to be completely different, right? So I wouldn't pinpoint and say, there is one technology that helps and one doesn't help, but I would say take a very tailored approach towards it, right? Based on the complexity, the culture, the processes, the maturity, then you make a decision around what tools are the right fit in this case. I was part of a major migration once, right? It was the cloud infrastructure migration. The tools I used then were very fit for purpose. It's about moving data from one infrastructure to another infrastructure, right? It was more of a technical migration, and there were so many tools I could use in that space, but it's not always going to be that case, right? So my answer would be it's really case by case.
I guess, Rebecca, I'm back at people that own the old tools and the legacy platforms of the business that's being acquired are the ones that know that tool and know that data the best, right? And they have somebody used the word institutional knowledge to me yesterday. They have that institutional knowledge that a tool can't necessarily get. Mm. And it's I think sometimes I've seen it where, okay, I'm going to use this tool to go in and understand this data. And I've seen it happen, but you only get, I don't know, it's that 80-20 rule. You get 80% and think you have it all, but no, the 20% is where the complexity is. Mm-hmm. So I'm struggling with the tool answer versus talk to the people that own the system, talk to the people that have that institutional knowledge, and then perhaps layer the tool over it. And I know this is
reality. That's the reality, isn't it? It's not a tool question. It's not a tech question. It's a people and process. And yeah, like you say, knowledge is so key to it. I love that term, institutional knowledge.
Yeah, and yeah, of course. And who else does it apply to better than?
She used that word yesterday. That's where I got it from. So just
I can't take the credit for it. And Rebecca, it also goes back to if you take one step back and think about it, it's not a sequential process. Migration is never going to be, oh, I finished this, I finished that, next. There are various touch points. You have architecture touch points, you have enterprise architecture, solution architecture, you have privacy teams, you have data governance, right? And to couple all that into the tool is going to be impossible. You do something, you find out, oh, wait, I need to check with this team. I need to check whether, we were looking at some data in Vietnam, and there is something new, a new law that is coming, data privacy protection law, that's coming into effect for Vietnam on January 1st, 2026, which Mary highlighted. A tool will never know that, right? And that's where, it can move A to B, but it would have never known that, wait, there's a catch for me. I think this is where it's an integration. Well, between the humans and the tools together.
Yeah, good. Yeah, very good point. Yeah. So when you think about the marketing functions coming together, when that merger is announced and those organizations, particularly marketing, don't know potentially what's our future brand going to be? Are we going to be one consolidated brand? Are we going to have a new set of products or solutions? At that very first point, nobody says to them, stop everything you're doing, stop marketing, because it's all going to change. So how does that work? How do you manage marketing happening from two different organizations that at some point are going to be one? How does that work?
I think it's that stabilization at the beginning, right? So you don't move. You stay where you are. So business one stays where it was, business two stays where it was. You understand those two businesses. You understand the capabilities, right? Are you going to merge this one into this one? Are you going to do a best of breed? What are you going to do, right? And then part of this is messaging out to your customer to say, now we're a combined house, right? Now I have, I don't know, like Winsight and Informa Winsight is a business we acquired. So now Winsight and Informa are pet and food are the same business, right? That's an external thing, right? Then you understand the overlap of the brands. Some people were in both brands, some people were in one, some people were in another. So you do that outside piece, and concurrently you understand the technical, the functions, where you're moving, how you're doing that, and then you start the move, right? And the move could be and should be the integration of the teams and then the integration of the technologies. You can't integrate the technologies if the teams are kind of disparate.
Yeah, and I would add to that that sometimes the most complex problems can be solved by simple tools, right? We were in a fix a few weeks earlier, and Mary had suggested, have you thought about doing a campaign calendar? So you guys are not emailing the same people at the same time from different angles, right? That was a really simple solution, but it did solve, almost solve the complex problem that you asked. How do you not step on each other's toes, not the shoes? And it also comes back to Mary's point on change fatigue. Change fatigue can be on both sides, right? When you bombard your customer, I mean, you are the experts. I don't have to tell you, right? There is a fatigue on that end as well, which you want to avoid. So I think, yeah, think through how you can have more visibility of what everybody is doing in a collective, holistic fashion, using the right tools, and then plan it out.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, sometimes, like you say, yeah, those simple things that people think, oh, it's too simple to bring into this conversation, are actually the answers. Yeah, love it. So, thinking back to any of these M&As that you've been through, what were some of the unexpected hurdles that you two in your roles had to deal with, jump over?
I'm going to go with the people side of things, right? I have been surprised by the support, we got from where we thought you mentioned resistance, right, Rebecca? Where we thought we were going to get resistance. Once you establish that trust, we have got unwavering support from those people, right? And we are still feeling that energy coming from them. They have bailed us out where we've got ourselves into a fix because, like Mary said, they are the experts, right? I think that is one of the good surprises that I have seen. But the step towards that is establish the trust. Nobody has an upper hand here, right? Then go with that approach.
So I would say the opportunities that come out of it, sometimes you go into it thinking there are no opportunities, but I would say the breadth and the depth of opportunities is there. I would also say one surprise that I've personally had is that people who left Informa are back through an acquired company. And so it's kind of fun to like re-meet people that you haven't seen in a long time. And so from a personal note, that's been it was a happy surprise.
Nice. Christian just put a note, a comment in the chat saying that a way to combat that change fatigue is through celebrating wins, and celebrate them as you go. Have you learned that through experience, Kristen?
Yes, as a consultant and on the client side of things as well, it's definitely can be very motivating and really kind of help to lift the mood, so to speak, because I think it's been inferred here that it's not like everything stops when an acquisition merger is happening. You still have like your day job, quote unquote, which it's not my favorite phrase, but that's in the reality. And then you have this entire acquisition, merger, and all of what that it entails, added to your added to the plates of everyone. So being able to celebrate those bright spots, really celebrate, even the smallest of things, capturing comments, any kind of like milestones that you may have developed into your plans, that those have been hit. Being creative with that can really go a long way, and be, very low cost as you go through that type of project.
Yeah.
Dan,
Yeah.
I noticed you've got your hand waved.
Did you have a question or a comment, Dan? Dan Porter.
I do. Yes, I am super curious to hear early in the process, understanding how customers buy for the different business groups that are being integrated together. Did you have any learnings as you went through that, kind of putting together all of the different customer journeys, how they go through that process? Was there anything that worked really well?
Learnings on how to compare the mappings, Dan? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. If you've got two different businesses coming in with maybe different products or services, how might you think about putting these two teams and these different tech stacks and all of that together to make sure that the customers are first, I guess?
Understood. And I think that's where I was trying to say before. It is at the customer is first, and it's at the customer is first from a very commercial reason, right, Dan?
Yeah.
To me, you can't lose your audience, lose your buyers, lose however you want to phrase it, right? It's also, I think, before you do the journeys, it's the brand overlap, right? So is Dan in the same brand, like the two different brands that are coming together? Now, how do I treat Dan and say, hey, Dan, I don't know, you bought one kind of water, you're loyal to that. Now you're going to buy another kind of water because it's the same brand or whatever. That overlap and understanding that, I think that's a piece. And then to your point about the journeys, I think understanding the two sets of journeys, if I took a big step back and I said, look, I need to understand the journey from company A, the journey from company B, and then do I even need to change those journeys? If I bring my tech stack together, because that's in the back end, right? That's in the background. Customer doesn't see that. If I bring my tech stack together, can I maintain those two journeys? And then what's the optimal journey, right? Will I get more conversions if I use, I don't know, the blue pen journey versus the pink pen journey or whatever? That's kind of, I'm looking at, I'll be honest, I haven't seen a lot of journey mapping, right? The journey overlap, right? I'm being very honest with you. I haven't seen us do that a lot. It's a really good question, but from a very kind of common sense standpoint, it's the back end stack changes, but then which journey map converts better? And does the conversion by journey matter by brand?
And I think this is where data-driven decisions come into place, right? And is one journey better than the other? How do you determine that? You cannot compare apples to oranges anyway, right? So once you bring them on the same tech stack and the data gets normalized and standardized, insights and data will automatically drive your decisions, right? As to to Mary's point, which one is better? Does it needs to change or not? You cannot do it while you're on disparate stacks and the data is telling you different signals, right? Open rate is one of it that we all know. And I'm not the open rate expert here, but we all know that it is different across different systems. So what I had here may not be the same thing I will have on a new platform. I think when you bring it all together, then it becomes very clear. It's a drop, it's neutral, it's a gain, right? You have to first standardize that.
Definitely.
It's
super
funny.
interesting.
I just saw a report, Sangeetha, that marketing is still not data-driven. So there's still, I saw this report the other night that data-driven decisions in marketing still doesn't exist. And, you know, this isn't the topic, but that just, it triggers something, Dan, that we claim to do one thing as a function, and the reality is it's something else. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think is it Joel?
Yeah, hi Rebecca.
Hi,
Thank you for having me.
I had to go back through my email to see your first name. Thanks for joining us today. Just seeing your comment, really pleased to see that you're enjoying the conversation. You're obviously going through this right now, being acquired and having been on both sides of this. Is there anything in particular that you are struggling with or experiencing with this current acquisition that might be something you could ask this forum?
No, definitely. The and you know what? It's very prescient. I mean, the company is being acquired by the world's largest advertising agency in a matter of weeks. So to the point of the sort of human aspect and the reassurance aspect that we talked about. Thank you, Sangeetha, by the way. And I work with Sangeetha and Mary already, by the way. So I saw Mary's post on LinkedIn. I thought, oh, I'll chime in on that call and see what's going on. But at this point has already come up a couple of times on this call, but the whole reassurance thing is really important of the company that's being acquired. I think that, I've been with this company for 27 years. We have acquired other companies and been acquired. I've been at both, literally both ends of the scale. And the efforts that the company goes to ready you for that acquisition is so important, just in terms of getting people's mindsets right. So that's why I really like that idea of the buddy thing. We hadn't even considered that one, but that is so important. It's almost sort of borders on cognitive behavioral therapy and creating optimism rather than fear. That's a massive thing. By the way, I mean, we in the company that I work in, we sort of specialize in data integration for big brands and also in data insight. And I like the point that Mary made around that, being able to rapidly take a view of the overlap between the two customer groups of the two brands that are coming together. I think it's not just the overlap, but it's also the insights, as I think Sangeetha alluded to, that you can get from the two different customer groupings. I've done that for banks where you had two vehemently different banks, for example, Citibank and Egg, when they came together. Massive culture clash between the Citibank that's based in the city and Egg, which was this young, trendy bank, based in Soho. The first thing they did was to move the people from Egg into the city, which is a massive culture shock, albeit they left them on the same on a different floor all by themselves, but huge culture clash. But one of the insights that the bank wants to rapidly get hold of is, what is my exposure to the same individual if both of them have got that person as a customer? So that's just a banking view on when you come from that data integration point of view. If you've got an exposure of £10,000 on a credit card, £20,000 on a loan, and £100,000 on a second mortgage or something, you look at that and go, wow, that's an incredible insight. And you multiply that by 1 million people, and it's a really important insight. So that's just the extra lens I've put on that overlap.
Yeah, interesting. And using that data too, from a customer perspective and sales and marketing perspective, how can you really utilize that new insight is great.
Even risk management, Rebecca. Think about it from the bank's perspective. Risk management.
Yeah, and then pushing that back out to using that insight to then push back out to both banks. So when you're talking about your parallel campaigns, well, you might want to use some of that insight if you're inviting someone in to get another credit card. You see what I mean? So it's hugely insightful. And you're right, Mary. It's being able to get that rapid view of that data is really important, even if you're going to maintain two different brand voices. So that's it's about all the perspectives I've got so far, but really good conversation.
We are right at the top of the hour, but I thought I'd just give Mary, Sangeetha, you both the opportunity to give some final words of wisdom for anyone who is facing this challenge right now or in the near future.
My piece of advice, Joel, thank you for sharing that. Good luck, congratulations, and the exciting opportunities, right? Work with the right experts. Don't be shy, don't suffer in silence. Like Joe has helped us with this, one of these mergers. Literally, we had worked with the company. I'm not sure what the name is going to be, Joel, but they worked with us to bring the data in for one of the mergers. And, you, Rebecca, have worked as Sojourn with many of our mergers and acquisitions. So get the right experts is what I would say.
Thank you. Mary?
I think I would say there's joy. Find the joy. If it's the shouting the wins, Kristen's wins, whatever it is, there's joy. Find the joy, make the joy. That's how you get through it. And that's how you win in the end.
That's a really lovely sentiment.
It is, it is. And one thing you said to me the other day, Mary, that I thought is so true and realistic is kind of ride the wave. Everything will settle down and calm in the end. And sometimes there'll be challenges, things you don't like along that journey, but just ride it out. Just be patient.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed the discussion as always with you two lovely ladies. And yeah, I think on the screen here are a couple of other channels that we have lots of different content shared with across the Sojourn website and across our social. So yeah, keep an eye out and see what else we've got coming up. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Have a lovely
Thank you.
day.
Thanks,
Great session.
everybody.
Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.